Hey guys, this is Nathan, and welcome to the Gaming 4. Today, in this Unturned Map Editor tutorial, I'll be showing you guys how to make something very specific. And that would be a swamp. Now, this is also a fan-based video I'm making for you guys. So, this is not going to be for everybody. But if you happen to want to make a swamp, I would suggest that you watch this video. Now, for sake of simplicity, I'm going to start from the beginning, from scratch, and I'm just going to make one big swamp. And there's multiple types of swamps. There's like forest swamps, there's like flatland swamps and desert swamps and all this other kind of swamps and crap. And I'm only going to make like one or two types of swamps, but I'll generally show you a good idea how you can start and then just go from there. So first of all, I'm going to just flatten out the world. Swamps are generally pretty flat, and so, it just seems like a good idea that we should just start with a flat world. Now, as you notice, it's black. It doesn't have a material on it yet, so we're going to have to apply one of our own. Now, I think for now, maybe I'll just put dirt, but you guys need to be thinking about what you're going to want to make the main body of your map. And I think the way this is going to end up, guys, is you could put pretty much any color on your swamp, okay? It just depends what you want. Like this dirt here, it's brown and gray, and actually it's kind of dark, so I'm going to change the lighting to midday. There we go, that's better. So, okay, so we got dirt on the ground. Now, in the end, I might suggest that you use gravel or something, but I've got sort of an idea how we can get it to be nicely detailed and realistic. So just wait on that for a bit. So next step we're going to go to, I think it's environment, and we're going to raise the sea level. Okay? Currently the sea is way down here. Okay? We got the dirt and we got the sea. Now, since most swamps are wet, pretty much all swamps I've been to are pretty wet, you're going to want to bring the water up. Now, we could move the land down, but that won't give us as much customizability for how deep we want the swamp to be. So I set the land to be 0.3, I think. So, for starters, I think we should probably make the sea level also 0.3. And as you can see, guys, once you make it to 0.3, it'll start glitching through and stuff. That's okay, because we'll be moving it up and down, and we'll be making ridges and stuff later. Actually, pretty much right now. So, let us just find some areas that we want our swamp to be in. Now, as I was looking at pictures of swamps, if you want them to be realistic as possible, most of the time it's really shallow. Like, not very deep at all. Some areas are going to be deep, but that'll be like the pond sort of area that's like in the middle of a swamp. So for now, let us lower some of this stuff. And I would suggest putting the strength on super low. Just because if we don't want to make super big pits into this water. We just want to make little areas. So, we can like, there. So let's say that this will be the main body of our pond. And as you can see, guys, it's not very deep at all. It's like, I would guess, half a meter, something like that. In fact, here, I'm going to test it for you. Okay, guys, so as you can see, we've got this water here. And as you can see, it's not very deep. I can lay down, and I think I can crawl all the way through this water. And guys, once the water gets to a certain depth in regular Unturned, you can't crawl. So as you can see, it just kicked me up. I can't crawl in it now because it is too deep. You can't even crouch. So that's one bummer about making a swamp, is you want it to be shallow enough, but if it's too deep at all, you won't be able to lay down or crawl in it or anything. So that's one bummer. So I guess if you're gonna have it deep, you might as well have it deep enough that they can be mostly submerged. I guess that might be one thought about it. So yeah, as you can see, it is not very deep at all. Okay, guys. So let's continue. Let's make the middle of this a little bit deeper, and we can start making some ridges up and around. Let's get to a spot where I can actually see without it being super glitchy. And guys, make sure it's going down. You don't want to undo what you just did. So I'm gonna make it go down quite a bit more actually, because might as well make it a little deeper. So not bad, right? You got a decently deep pond, probably deep enough that if you're right in the middle, you could probably disappear all the way underwater. So the next step would probably be, let's lower the size a bit. Probably actually raise it a bit, that's a little too small. To start raising up the land around it. And I freaking hate this glitchiness. And so the nice thing about that is it'll get rid of that glitchiness. And you guys just do it really fast. I would suggest you do it really fast so you don't raise it up very much. Because if you raise it up too much, it'll be a little harder later to make more dips and randomization of puddles that surround swamps. Because guys, generally with a swamp, there's like a main pond, and then normally there's like little divots here and there in the surrounding area that are filled with water. And so we'll start to make those. But for now, we can just really quickly fill in this area. And I'm not going to bother doing this whole thing because that'd be one big swamp and that would take a long time. So I'm trying to keep this short. So I'm trying to do it really, really fast for you. Okay, so that's pretty good. So we got a pretty randomized, pretty flat, smooth area. And we got one main pond here. And I'm going to fix that just a little bit. Go away. Go away. We don't want any of that glitchiness. I'm very sorry for those of you who might have epilepsy. That would suck for you, I'm pretty sure. Okay, and there's a couple spots, but you don't have to worry so much about that detail. Now, the next thing you want to do is you want to make it facing downwards. And guys, don't forget the hotkey for raise and lower is Q, and if you press them, it switches back and forth. So now you're going to want to face downwards, and you're going to want to start putting in these little bits of water here and there. Make it realistic, make them small, make them big. It's all up to you guys. This is going to be just the stylization of your pond. And really, nobody can do this job for you. So like when somebody asks me, how do you make a pond? Well, a lot of it's going to be your own judgment on what you want the pond to look like. So over here, this will be a pretty spotty area. And then over here, I'll make maybe a little more full, but still really shallow. And that looks pretty good. Alright, so we got the general outline of this pond, and these are not deep at all. They're like, I don't know if you'll be able to lay down in them because it's like hardly any water at all. But I mean, it'll be enough that you'll have your feet wet at least. So that's good. Okay, so now to add a little more contrast, if you want your pond, if you want your pond to be like this, where it's really, really, really flat with just a couple dip downs, you can just leave it like this. But I'm going to add a little more height to my pond and my swamp. And as you see, it's like super flat. But now what we can do is in these areas that aren't filled with water, we can just raise it up just a little bit more. And it'll just give it a little more depth. And as you can see, guys, you don't want to do it too much. Like that might be a little too much. But I think it's fine because in real life, swamps are like that. And as you can see, guys, my strength is up a little bit. I need to actually move that down. That's why it was getting so big. So you're probably just going to want to do that in some of the main areas. You don't have to do it everywhere. Don't have to do it evenly. Just get some general outlining down. So now, pretty much as you're doing this, you should probably be thinking about what type of plants you want to be having on your swamp later. Because this is actually the plants is a really important part of your swamp. Because that'll give it like the stylization that sets it apart from other types of swamps. Like you can have a plain dirt swamp, like just like this in the middle of a field. Or you could have another type of swamp that has trees in it. And I'm going to be making this part over here have trees in it because it's a little deeper water, and this part be more like bushes and grass and stuff. I'm even going to have a section that has a bit of wheat in it, because you can make a pretty sick swamp with that. I'll show you guys how to do that right as soon as I'm done with this. And I think, guys, it's pretty good. I mean, that's very satisfactory for me. We got a little more height, not a ton, but enough to make it so that, you know, there's just a little more texture on the outside. Now, guys, you can make it way more than this, and if you make it more bumpy up and down, it'll make it so that you don't need as much plants. So if you don't want to really mess with any of that plant stuff, go ahead and make it a little higher. But now let's start getting into that. So there's a couple ways we can do this, guys. We got details, where we pretty much have to bake them on, and I'll show you guys how to do that. Or we've got resources, where we can start placing them one at a time. Really, the best things that are available to us are bushes. Yeah, so we got different types of bushes here. We got, you know, and of course, guys, I forgot this was on small, and so this is going to end up being a freaking huge swamp, because, you know, these things are ridiculous. The map sizes are freaking crazy. So, I mean, you know, we can place them one by one. Really, guys, it's not going to be very efficient, though. So I'm going to go through a couple strategies of how you can bake the materials on. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go over here to materials, and first of all, you're probably going to want to just ignore that section over there. Figure out a type of material that you're not going to be using in the rest of your map. And most people don't really use farm in the rest of their map, just because it's such a weird material. And so you're going to want to paint every area that you want to be swamp with this farm material. And guys, we're going to remove that later. So, I mean, you're not going to have an orange looking swamp here. Okay? So now what we're going to want to do is under the farm here, we've got overgrowth and chance, and you want those both to be up all the way. And you're going to want to either have grassy 1, grassy 2, flowery, rocky. You're going to want to have one of these selected, and I'm going to put grassy 2. And this, if you guys have no idea what I'm doing, please go check out the details and resources video I did. Yeah, I covered that very thoroughly. It's kind of tricky work, though. So now that we got that set, we just have to remember we've got a preset for grassy number 2. So now let's go to our details. At this point, we need to decide what do we want inside of our swamp. So I do want some flowers. I'm thinking maybe a blue flower. That looks like a blue flower. Quality's not really great. So I think I'm going to pick this flower. It might be dark blue, dark purple. So what you have to do if you want it on your type of ground in your swamp is you need to select grassy number 2. Okay, for all items that you want. So I'm obviously going to want some grass, so I'm going to select some grass. I want different types of grass. I do not want wheat. Another thing to think about, guys, is if something is in grass number 2 that you don't want, you need to uncheck that. Otherwise, it will be inside of your swamp. I don't really want pebbles. I think I'm not going to have any pebbles, and there aren't any anyway. So that's all good. So far I've got grass, 2 types of grass, and 1 type of flower. And that's good for now. I'm just going to bake this and see what shows up. So as you can see, we got tons of grass, and we got our flower, and it ended up being blue, which is pretty sweet. So as you can see, there's like way too much grass, right? Or, I mean, maybe you want this much grass. I mean, it really doesn't matter. But you guys can customize the amounts that you want. So I want to have not very many blue flowers. And there really aren't that many already, so maybe I'll increase the amount of blue flowers just a little bit. How you do that is you increase the chance, and you possibly increase the density. So I'm going to increase both of those just a little bit, And now as you can see, there's a lot more blue flowers. Maybe too much, but you know what? I'm just going to leave it for now. And I'm actually going to decrease the chance of grass. Because, I mean, that's a little too much for me. It's a little overwhelming how much grass there is. And I'm going to decrease them even a bit more. You definitely want to have some grass though. Unless that's just not your type of, your swamp. Which, you know what? Do what you want, guys. It really doesn't matter. Okay, so now we head on to resources. We can also bake these resources, which is fantastic, because then we don't have to place them down customly at each time. So we have for the material, we've got grassy number 2 selected. So that correlates to tree number 2. So I'm not going to add any trees yet, but I am going to work on some bushes. I want just a normal bush, and it's going to look like that. Okay, so I want these types of bushes everywhere, so I'm going to add them to tree number 2. I got guys, that doesn't make sense, but you know, it's just how they named it. And I'm going to actually put in like all of these bushes. I want a lot of bushes. Oh, those are birches. Never mind. I don't want birches. Don't do that. I do want the bushes though. So we got 2 types of bushes, and I'm actually going to make, since we got blue flowers, I'm going to make a blue indigo bush. Indigo is like a light blue. So pretty much what I'm going to do is I'm going to want to increase the density and chance of that. I just noticed it was at 0. You're going to want to increase the density and the chance probably of all of these, depending on how thick you want the underbrush to be. And now we're going to bake global. So as you can see, it worked. And guys, just if you're curious, none of it's spawning over here. So, I mean, it's really just confined to that one material you want to be in your swamp. So, I'm actually going to make the bushes up just a bit. I'm going to make the density up to make it more in clumps. The density control is clumps, by the way. And, you know, you can't really tell that much, but it does make it a little more clumpy. Okay guys, so now as you can see, there's bushes in the water. Now for some of you that may be cool. I mean, maybe you want bushes in your water. But we can actually get rid of that if you're not cool with that. We're not going to be able to get rid of that super well, but I mean, we can do it. We can get rid of most of the bushes in the water. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go back to materials and select dirt again. Now, I'm mainly worried about this in my main swamp. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm just going to paint the underground area of this swamp with dirt. And you're sort of going to have to guess where it is, and you can overlap on the edges a little bit. It's not really going to matter that much in the end. Okay, so now that I've baked the details, there shouldn't be any grass or flowers down here. As you can see, there aren't any grass or flowers down here, except for the areas that I forgot to paint. So we also need to bake resources, and that should pretty much take care of it. There really shouldn't be anything else down there. And pretty much, you know, the areas that we overlapped on the edges, it's not really a big deal. Okay guys, I'm going to do one last thing that has to do with baking, and that will be for some trees. So at a certain point, guys, if you want to do more of a prairie type swamp, this would be perfect. There really would be one more step of painting over it what you want to be the final material for the ground, which could be grass or gravel or dirt or whatever. But I'm going to put a little trees in and, you know, mess around with that a little bit just to see how it turns out. So I'm going to get a few trees here. I'm going to suggest a few that might be good for swamps. There's this birch tree. It's decent. There's this birch tree, which I like a little better actually. Usually swamps are thought of as being kind of dead and rotten, and that tree is a little more dead looking. So I like that one a little better. Let's see, what else? There's some more trees down here eventually. Come on, maples. That's a decent tree. I like it because of the dark bark. That one would be better again. Guys, if you want to have a really green looking swamp though, go ahead and make your green looking swamp. Ornamental tree, obviously, probably not. You don't want to have a Christmas tree inside of your swamp. Pine trees would actually be decent. You got a lot of underbrush cover with those branches low hanging. Another pine tree. I actually like that one better. Again, just because I'm going for that style of swamp. And we've got two more pine tree styles, and those would be snow pine trees. And I'm not going to do snow pine trees here. You definitely could, though, guys. Oh, look at that. That's a glitch. Place a tree on top of a tree. Okay, so I think I'm going to choose these two types. I think I'm going to choose this pine tree and this maple. So what I need to do is find those two trees that I want. That would be this pine tree number 2, and you just put it on that tree number 2 selection, and then maple number 2, that's the other one. And I'm actually going to delete both of those, and I'm going to bake global. Now it has put those trees on. And guys, the nice thing about this baking is you can customize how thickly you want these trees to be. So let's say I only want to have a few maple trees, but I'm going to make them high in density. So low chance, high density. I'll bake global, and I'll see what it's like. And you know, that looks decent, but I want a couple more pine trees. So I just got to go to pine number 2, increase the density and increase the chance, and bake again. And now we should have a pretty thickly area that's covered. And yeah, it's looking like a pretty good swamp. So just a second, guys, and I'm gonna go walk around and see what it's like. Okay, guys, so it turned out pretty nice. I mean, we got a nice big pond in the middle. Turned out to be really, really big. Guys, you can miniature size this though. The nice thing about this pond is that there's nothing in the bottom. There's no junk or anything like that, like any bushes, which makes it seem like a pretty clean pond. But if you want to have a dirty swamp, I mean, you can put anything you want in there. You could chuck trees in the bottom even. I've seen swamps that are actually like that. They got lots of trees in the bottom. Um, yeah, it's looking like a pretty nice swamp. So you can see these trees have spawn in the bottom. And this is actually a nice depth. It's deep enough that, like, you can swim just a little bit. And if you go into third person mode, you're actually underwater. But then it's shallow enough that you can walk around most of it, and it's not really that deep at all. So yeah, it looks like a pretty nice world. And these hills are a little too high, but you know, it's not that bad. Okay guys, so that's pretty much what it looks like down below. There really is only one step left to finishing our swamp, and that would be picking a material for the ground. Now you could stick with dirt, and that would look okay. I'm sure that would look fine. It just depends what you want to be at the bottom. I would suggest either using dirt. You could use grass. That would definitely be a viable option. I would suggest though that you try to keep the grass out of the bottom for the main pond, because generally you don't have grass growing underwater. For these ones, I mean, grass on the bottom is not going to be a big deal. Uh, Grass actually looks really good. I would also suggest, if you want to go a little different, maybe some gravel. The nice thing about gravel is that it's really dark. It's a lot darker than dirt over here. So I mean, it makes it look kind of rotting, kind of like dark, rich soil. You know, it could definitely work for a swamp. Besides that, it's probably mostly going to be those three. I mean, you could potentially make a sand swamp. That would definitely be an option. Um, Weird option, but you know, you could do that if you wanted. And then there's snow and stone. I guess you could do stone. That would definitely be more of like a mountaintop type swamp. But you know, you could just do whatever you want, guys. I mean, I would suggest gravel. The only other thing to consider after you've picked out what you want for the ground to be is, just so you know, do not bake using the material baking. Don't material bake, don't detail bake, and don't resource bake after you've chosen what you want to be on the ground, because it will actually remove and change all these resources that we have baked on there. So if you guys are wanting to make a swamp, I would suggest starting it as one of the last things you do on your map, just because you don't want to accidentally undo all this stuff, okay, because it will take you some time to redo it. So thank you guys for watching. Please like the video if you enjoyed it, and if you got some ideas about how you want to make your own swamp. Guys, please don't copy exactly what I'm doing. Not that I really care, but your ideas are going to be just as good as mine. So don't copy what I'm doing, because your ideas are going to be possibly even better than mine. I went through this really quickly, guys. You can spend a lot more time making yours, making them way better. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. Please consider subscribing to our channel. And thank you guys for watching. I'll see you all later.